Hello, everyone. Welcome to today's show where we'll be diving into an incredibly important topic. Today, we are going to discuss about consumer-centered vision in the digital finance ecosystem. We've seen how the digital finance system has continued to evolve from time to time, and it's very important that we keep our consumers at the center of this transformation. So today we'll explore how digital finance platforms are addressing consumer rights and consumer needs. We're going to look at how the digital finance system is enhancing accessibility for our consumers, ensuring that there is data privacy, and what more can be done by the producers so that their financial services in the digital finance system can be more inclusive and secure. Something that the consumers can find it easy to navigate through while using without facing any challenges. So I'm Brian Habeko. I'm your host for today. I'm stepping in for my colleague Kato Mukasa, who is away on other duties. And I'm very excited today because I'll be joined by Mr. Kimera Henry from Uganda. He's a renowned expert in consumer rights and digital finance. So together we are going to discuss the current challenges, opportunities, and the future of consumer-focused digital finance landscape. We've you must have seen throughout the news. There's been breaking news from here and there about how the consumers have been exploited, and the repercussions that has come out as a result. So today we are going to bring that discussion, and we encourage you to stay engaged, share your thoughts, subscribe to our YouTube channel, follow us on Facebook, follow us on WhatsApp, so that you can get more insights. So I'm going to welcome our guest for today, Mr. Kimera Henry, who is going to briefly introduce himself and give us a recap of what we discussed during the last episode. Thank you. Welcome, Mr. Kimera.
Thank you, Brian, and thank you, Dennis, and all your colleagues in the respective Humanist Africa TV centers and workplaces around the globe, and in particular those that are in Africa, because you facilitate and enable us to talk to one, I would say, the biggest continent on the planet, because it said we are around about 1.4 billion global citizens on the African continent. So having said that, once again, colleagues who always tune in to the Humanist Africa TV every Saturday for 1 hour at 3 p.m. East African time. Today we are online at 3:20, 24, 25 East African time, and the rest 3 digits or 3 hours behind on 3 hours or to 10 positive. Would like to talk to you and discuss the consumer-centered vision in digital finance ecosystem. So today, before we set off, you'll appreciate that we started the digital finance discussion in the month of July, and we are going to continue discussing the different aspects. We brought you different views, and today Brian has shared with us a video in Zambia where food that came not from Zambia but came in differently from different countries, and I would say that that food The discussion started on phone, which is communication, digital platforms. Orders were made on phone, which is digital or communications platform. LPOs were made to supply bills of lading, food is communication. It arrived into the country. Bills of lading, consignment entered into digital infrastructure. Then it went for tests, and it was found not to be fit for human consumption. After samples of food delivered digitally, paid for digitally, because they used banking systems. So, Brian, the video you have just shared is all about the communication and the digital ecosystem, which aligns well with our discussion today, which is digital finance ecosystem, which needs to be consumer-centered vision. So if the end product of the digital finance, the communication and digital platforms deliver a service or good that is not of quality, it ends up being condemned in such a way that that is how maize flour that was found to be contaminated with aflatoxin in Zambia was destroyed. So this is how important the issues we are discussing are to our life. So that is my first perception and scenario for today's discussion. I would like to go back when we started. We started the digital finance discussion focusing on the consumer rights and responsibilities. Then we went into other series looking at different players. What role do they have to play? Then we went in, where are the challenges? What are the opportunities? What are the risks? And today we would like to see what is the consumer-centered vision in the digital finance ecosystem. I wouldn't say that this is my vision. No, it is the consumer movement vision from the Consumers International perspective, where different consumer organizations from more than the Consumers International as a consumer federation, global federation with more than 250 members in over 100 and some countries, spoke out and they say this is the consumer-centered vision. So today we are going to look at that vision, and then we'll relate it with your own country, wherever you are. But I would be recapping, or I will be bringing in all the first series and today's series. What is the consumer-centered vision for fair digital finance? And I would say the consumer-centered vision from a paper and brief from Consumers International, it is a strategy on how consumer advocacy needs to be rolled out, shared, to raise consumer awareness, not only for consumers. You'll appreciate that even the regulators, after putting off the hat of being a regulator, they are consumers too. With deep fake, even regulators have been victims of fraud, unscrupulousness. They have lost money. They have been duped. However experts they are. So the consumer awareness raising is not only for consumers as ordinary citizens of respective countries, but it also goes in to the regulators. It also goes in to businesses, because also businesses have been duped where they lose millions and billions of either dollars. If we were to use the different currencies all over the world, they can be euros, they can be shillings, they can be kwachas, they can be dealers. All these we all fall victim if we are not aware of the unscrupulous in the environment. So this is where Consumers International, to which Consent is a member, and many other countries have got members to Consumers International, consumer-centered vision for fair digital finance arose also to mobilize change in how the marketplace stakeholders think about the consumers, how the marketplace needs to place the consumer at the center of digital finance. I would like to go back by telling you that consumers, we are the biggest socioeconomic grouping that drives the economies, but unfortunately, we are the most unlistened to grouping. We are taken for granted. We are fought for, and people take decisions on our behalf without consulting us. And then we get impacted by those decisions. That's why we are having a consumer-centered vision for fair digital finance to speak out and talk and call to action for fair digital finance. So as I'm saying that the different stakeholders need to understand consumers, address issues, the challenges that affect us as we are looking at the benefits of the digital finance environment. The digital finance environment has got many opportunities that will build trust and confidence so that the consumers, who are around about 7 point something billion, which Africa takes on 1.4 billion, need to know and they need to influence. Those of you who are listening to me, the day you decide to boycott your mobile phone, not going to the bank, globally the economies will feel the pinch. And that shows how important you are as an individual consumer. And that is how important as an individual consumer you need to play your role by speaking out and up and say, this is not fair to me. This is what I need to be fair to me so that I can use the ecosystem. That's why the consumer-centered vision for fair digital finance becomes very important. To speak out and up to decision makers, to build solutions, to create consumer protection, and also to scale up consumer protection in the market so that we have got confidence in the digital finance infrastructure and services. So having said all that, the consumer vision for fair digital finance provides consumers, consumer advocates, other civil society, non-state actors an opportunity with tools who speak from local context. We might say that Brian in Kenya, they will look at digital finance from their local context, where M-Pesa is proving to be the foundation and one of the strongest digital finance products globally. Having started, when it started, it is providing services, opportunities, but also risks for consumers in Kenya. So this is where we need to grab this opportunity wherever we are to start speaking out, and we see and we lobby to make sure that we advocate for consumer-centered digital finance that speaks to the consumers. Without consumer money, there is no business. Without consumer participation, there is no business. Without consumer inclusion, without consumer interface and engagement, there's no global business. So consumers, wherever you are, even if you're a business operator, even if you're a regulator, you're a consumer. So we need to make sure that the infrastructure, the systems are providing us the opportunities. But you might continuously ask, Chimera is talking about digital finance, digital finance. What is digital finance and what are the financial technologies? As a recap, digital finance is all about the different broad ranges of financial services, such as online payments, credit, issues to do with savings, using digital infrastructure, digital technologies to offer all these services to you. And when I say all this, some of you, as we are talking to you, we are using the digital technologies, but we had to pay for data. We used the digital technologies to pay for data to be on the stream. So digital finance, it plays a major role on our day-to-day life as human beings. Whether it is detrimental or not, or positive, providing us opportunities, digital finance ecosystem or the digital ecosystem is not a privilege. It has become a right, like a human right which we need to campaign for, to advocate for, to fight for, and we assert our rights. As we assert our rights to get quality service, then we also need to be responsible. If we see people vandalizing the digital infrastructure, which is going to impede the quality of digital deliverance of service, we need to speak up. That is a risk, which takes away all the opportunities where the financial technologies, which is fintech, refers to the different digital technologies that give us the potential to transform and give us the potential to look at the different products digital finance has from businesses, as in banking facilities, we go to savings, we go to cooperatives, we go to investment clubs. We use all these tools as we send in money and withdraw money. They become think tech technologies or platforms. So having said all that, I would like to, once again, before I go to step by step, what consumer-centered vision for fair digital finance is all about, would remember that digital finance gives us opportunities to operate from anywhere, opportunities to provide us, and we will appreciate all this where skeptics say COVID-19 might have been a play to get digital finance or digital services popular. But we would appreciate that all these aspects of digital finance before COVID, they were up and running, but most of the people had not taken them up. But during COVID, many of us, we ordered food online, we ordered services online, we ordered treatment online, we did more finance banking online. It is when the revolution, what they call the fourth revolution of digitalization, became to reality. The Green Revolution came with monoculture, which is climate change. Today we are fighting, or we are trying to mitigate, but the fourth resolution of industrialization, looking at digital, was mainly driven during the COVID times, where the global world shut down to a certain extent, but it was operating digitally. Where all banks were closed in certain countries, but we had to access our money using the digital infrastructure. These opportunities that came with that challenge, the demise, the detriment, brought in opportunities of low cost of operation. They enabled us to say that one service provider is not providing with me the most effective services as we are grappling with COVID. Let me choose to go to another service provider. All this provided us with choice. It provided us with access. It brought sustainability because the national network providers, as in telecoms, as in financial services, they had to come up with products that will attract us to choose and access, to choose and use, that brought in sustainable approaches. So those are the opportunities that came in with the digital finance, which I would like to go shortly after talking about the risks to show you that a consumer-centered vision is very key to continuously drive and transform. Very quickly, the risks that came out, even with COVID, it found that the financial infrastructure in certain countries, as in policy, legal, regulatory, and institutional frameworks, were weak. Our data protection was weak. There were gaps globally and nationally. Consumers who complained when they faced challenges, unscrupulous practices, didn't have at times opportunities. There was a lot of misleading, forming and deforming and misinforming. All these needed a legal, regulatory, and institutional frameworks to put in place. And this is where the risks lead to the wanting and the warranting to have consumer-centered, fair digital finance, which will build trust and confidence in its consumers to access, enjoy the benefits of the digital financial systems or the digital ecosystem that is fair and responding to consumer challenges. Regulators had a lot of challenges, risks, the new products, the new challenges where you find that the service provider had limited infrastructure to handle. So they had got service providers challenges. And today, as we are going to talk about the consumer-centered vision for fair digital finance or ecosystem, all need to address these risks and challenges and uphold the opportunities. Brian, that was my curtain riser. It has been long. It's like a lecture, but I thought I'll bring it in, and then we can, after your intervention, then we roll back. Then I'll talk about what we need to do as consumers, consumer organizations, businesses, and governments to realize the consumer-centered vision for fair digital finance. Thank you, Brian.
Thank you so much, Mr. Kimera, for your recap. It has been very insightful, and I really like the fact that you passionately spoke about the regulatory framework. In this consumer globe, the regulatory framework is the most important. According to me, it's the most important thing because you see, that's where
Yes.
everything starts. And once we get the regulatory frameworks right, then it means implementation of other measures is going to be easy. Look, for instance, here in Kenya, right now we are dealing with a scandal on edible oils. And you realize that where we went wrong is at the regulatory framework because from the word go, that deal did not follow the procedures that is supposed to be followed. And what facilitated that is because we don't have any uh, regulatory framework in place that guides the government on how to do some things. So there are so many loopholes, but you've talked about them, and there is also this part of inclusion, because you do realize that some of the communities are underserved, and most of those people, they are unaware of what's happening. They don't know what they should be doing. So even for instance, the loan providers are taking advantage of that, and it's been really an issue because when somebody is unaware of their rights, it's very easy to exploit that person because they won't know you're exploiting them. And that's why it's very important that we keep on talking about consumer rights and what consumers should be expecting from the services and goods that they are receiving, because once they are aware, they are able to challenge areas where they feel that they are being exploited or they are being shortchanged. And having said that, I think that was a very good recap for what has been discussed throughout when we started this discussion about consumer rights and policies. And I think now we can focus on today's topic, where we are going to talk about consumer-centered vision in the digital finance ecosystem. Maybe Mr. Kimera, for starters, like me and so many other people who are watching, you could possibly explain to us or try to make us understand what we mean by the digital finance ecosystem, and how is it really, why is it so important to the consumers? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Brian. And you say something that is very key, which we always need to demystify and even simplify it. I would like to say, as I go into a little with regards to what is digital financial services. Like I said earlier, digital financial services are an ingredient in every aspect of humanity today. And as I go back, digital financial services refer to the broad range of financial services such as payments, loans, credit, savings, using digital, your mobile phone, going to a banking agent, going to an agent for mobile money. You might not have a smartphone, But if you are paying for electricity in other country, like in my country, Uganda, we no longer have airtime cards. They were scrapped 3 to 4 years ago, and we cried out, how are we going to get airtime if we do not have airtime scratch cards or paper codes? We all ended up, now we have forgotten that we were using scratch cards. We are all going with our money to mobile money agents. May you put for me 1,000 shillings airtime at the corner shop or under a tree shed? You'll find somebody who has got a table, a kiosk, and providing digital services, where we are paying for food, where we are paying for utility services, electricity, water, transport, where you need not to pay cash and you are told you are going to pay digitally, and you have to load the money on your phone and pay. So digital financial services are broad. They touch every aspect. It is you using either your mobile phone or going to a kiosk, going to a community common user facility and say, I am depositing this money, I'm paying for water, I'm paying for electricity, I'm paying for TV, I am paying school fees, I'm paying taxes, I am paying rent. So digital finance is touching every aspect of your life, where you are paying money digitally, not physical cash, as in shillings, as in dollars, as in kwacha, as in niras, as in your local currency. But you're paying your local currency digitally. And you are using fintech, financial technologies, where these financial technologies are looking at the digital platforms from which we are paying. Before the big growth of digital finance, we would go in and swipe our debit or credit cards, and they would get the money from your bank account. But today, the credit and debit cards are still there, but on your mobile app, on your phone, you can access your account. You pay for your electricity, you pay for your food, you pay for your insurance, you pay for everything without you going physically to the bank. With today's world and technologies, where you spend 2 hours in a traffic jam to go and do a transaction of less than $1 or less than $2, you can do it in the comfort of your sitting room, and you only pay for half the time, the money you would pay for public transport to go there. These privileges are no longer privileges, they are rights, because it has proved that we need them on a daily basis. Those of you, like I was talking about COVID, we had to pay for nearly everything when we were told, do not leave your jurisdiction. Those of you in Nairobi, you had a partial lockdown. You could go into town until a certain time. For us in Uganda, until a certain time, we would go and start moving at 6 a.m. and by 6, we'll be closed until it was extended to 7, until it was extended to 9 o'clock, until it was taken away. But some people, even up to today, that phobia of a lockdown is still impacting them. So that is how COVID and digitalization are still having an impact on us. The positives are it opened up consistent digital financing appreciation, and which we will need to continuously uphold with campaigning for it to be consumer-centered, for it to be fair, for it to be of quality. And this is the discussion we are going to today. And I liked when Brian talked about inclusivity. In previous series of our Humanist Africa TV, I told you the story of Uganda in 1990, in 2009, where we had about 5 formal accounts in banks. But when mobile money started, like M-Pesa started in Kenya, millions and millions who had mobile phones came into the financial ecospace or the financial ecosystem. Their SIM cards became their bank accounts. So in many countries where people do not have regulated financial systems, regulated by the central banks, regulated by the microfinance authorities, they have got their mobile money wallet where they can get their money and put it on their mobile money accounts, save it there. Then the telecoms, the companies, end up using that money, and to date, to incentivize consumers, they give them some interest. So the non-bankable consumers transisted with new innovations, with new technologies, with new trends, from being unbankable in the form of financial institutions, then to be accountable with wallet accounts with their SIM cards. And then the companies that were offering telecom ended up being financial institutions, but regulated by communication companies or authorities. Now with the laws, they have ended up splitting those companies. If I use the Ugandan example, where MTN and Airtel have come up with MTN Money, that is doing the mobile money business, regulated by the central bank. But before 2002, they were regulated by the communication company, authority. Like you have got the Communications Commission of Kenya. Now I trust Safaricom is regulated by the Central Bank of Kenya because of mobile money. Then the communication bit remained with the Communications Commission of Kenya. Like the same in Uganda, Uganda Communications Commission no longer regulates, but it contributes to policy advisory with regards to the communication area, even with mobile money. Now, mobile money in Uganda, the companies had to be split. We have got the Airtel Money, we have got the Airtel Money Uganda, we have got MTN Mobile Money or MTN Money. They are not regulated by the telecom. They are regulated by the central bank. So all these are showing how the global world is evolving from analog to digital. As they evolve in digital, the new trends are also evolving within the digital ecosystem. And this is where, as they evolve, the consumer rights, consumer protection, consumer voices are needed. And this is why we are talking about inclusivity. 5 million to over 40 million today in Uganda have got now financial accounts, virtue of their, or by default, of having a SIM card and owning a mobile device. And this is where inclusivity comes in. And this inclusivity calls to action. All of us in the digital flow, the digital sector at each level, where we need government to put in place enabling financial and digital infrastructure. 2 days ago, we were in one town council 100 kilometers from Kampala doing a consumer town hall, and their biggest challenge was poor network. Poor network means that they cannot call effectively, or as they are calling, they get dropped calls. The quality of the network and signal is poor. When they go in to transact, to make payments using the digital finance infrastructure, transactions fail. That is where an enabling environment for quality infrastructure is very key. And this is where the marriage of communication and digital finance comes in. That communication is the foundation for digital finance fairness. So that's where we call upon governments as duty bearers to make sure that the infrastructure is of good quality to meet the consumer needs, to do seamless transactions, have affordable charges, have affordable accessibility, to enable them to transact, to create consumer protection services, consumer protection regimes, to enable consumers make choices. If I take this service and I don't like it, I can go to another service, to be in position for the service providers to talk to consumers. That's where the consumer voices are needed in an enabling environment. Consumers to speak up, and that's where I commend the Uganda Communications Commission coming up with the town halls. We used to have the consumer dialogues and came up with the consumer parliaments. Now we are doing the consumer town halls alongside the consumer parliament, and plus other mechanisms to provide consumers with a platform to complain and get quality service. So to have a consumer-centered vision in fair digital finance, communication and financial services regulators need to meet to make sure that there is quality infrastructure. They need to bring different stakeholders to talk about privacy and data protection, to talk about issues to do with the cross-cutting coordination of different government agencies that collect consumer data. The private sector, the businesses, whether they are in marketing, they're in advertisement, they have got the platforms that financial services use and they use the numbers of consumers hooked on their networks to say, you can advertise to me your financial services because I've got 1 billion consumers networked, all hooked on my network. But one thing that is required there is, how do you protect and use that private data? Many people hack into those companies, and that's where digital fraud comes in. When people hack into the digital spaces, storages of these different service providers. And this is where the enabling environment, where I was talking about the infrastructure, needs to be in place, calling for tight protection of data privacy. So private sector need to have infrastructure that will not relent and allow consumer abuse. The private sector needs to provide enabling environment for consumers to enjoy their inclusivity and privacy. So Brian, these are aspects that we need to look to. You talked about inclusivity, and inclusivity is handling all that. But as we are talking of inclusivity, we touch the issues of safety. And this is where, to have a consumer-centered vision, fair digital finance, safety is very crucial. Attracting millions on M-Pesa, attracting millions on Airtel Money, attracting millions on MTN, I'm talking of Africa, Orange Money, and so forth. It is very key to have safety for consumers to build trust, confidence in the digital finance ecosystem. That is why today we are discussing companies. Can you have consumer-centered services? When a consumer complains, you resolve the complaint very quickly because you have got their data. And the defrauders are using your infrastructure to defraud consumers, where you can very quickly disconnect and address the challenge. When a consumer complains about not having their lines officially registered, they are easily disconnected. But when the consumers complain of lines that are defrauding them, they take long to be disconnected.
And when you talk about data and security, yes, consumer data and security measures, it's really an issue that has been a big concern, because we are looking at how the data of the consumer is kept and how it's used. Because apart from even defrauding, when you look at Kenya, for instance, we've had instances whereby if I take a personal loan from an online lending platform, they are getting access to my data, they are getting access to the people that I contact frequently, and in an instance where I cannot pay that loan, do you know what happens? These guys, they go and call almost everyone in your contact list, they harass them just because you took a loan. And we could be close with you, Mr. Kimera, but I'm not. I might not be that close to know that you took a loan, or I didn't ask you to put me as a guarantor. So it's become a really issue. How are they giving out these loans, and the data that they are using? How are they are taking? How are they going to use that collected data? And it's been very unfortunate that initially in Kenya we didn't have a regulatory framework that controls how the data that they are collecting from us is going to be used. So we've had so many threats that have been going around until it even became a national outrage, because the online learning platforms were busy. They're even calling your pastor and they're telling you that, one of your members, Mr. Kimera, took a 3,000 loan from us, and we realized that you guys communicate constantly. So we want to ask you to talk to Mr. Kimera so that he can pay back. And if you don't, the next time they call you, they are calling you with threats. And the most annoying and serious case was whereby these lending platforms, they have a way of jamming your phones, so that if you don't clear their debt, there is a way that they tamper with your network. You'll be receiving over 1,000 messages per minute, so you can't even use your phone. So how are we really supposed to be going about that?
Yeah, thank you very much, Brian. And I would like to pick up what Kato said some time back. And this is how we are Consumers International we are advocating for consumer-centered vision for fair digital finance. With data protection and safety, Brian, you can use this information today and go and petition your personal data protection office and say, as a consumer, I took a loan. That is my individual responsibility. It is not the responsibility for those who are in my phone book.
Exactly.
They shouldn't be harassed. Your data protection office needs to take on the companies that they are infringing, hacking into your phone book. One, to misrepresent you. Two, to threaten, to abuse you. I don't say that consumers shouldn't use that to abuse the lending companies. But the lending companies should not abuse your data. They dealt with you as an individual of age who can be sued and who can, because when they were lending you, not everybody in your phone book, contact book, was a guarantor. So approaching them is abusing them. Approaching your pastor, approaching your best friend who doesn't know. If when they are lending you, they ask you who is your guarantor, and you put there your pastor, you put there your best friend, or you put there your phone book contacts, they have a right to contact them. Unless behind the line there is an agreement under the terms of reference, they say everybody in your phone book is a guarantor. When you put in your PIN number, it showed that you have signed onto those terms of reference. So when you complain to your data, they will need to ask the companies that give you digital lending, that do digital lending to you, to bring the agreement to which your PIN becomes your signature. You get me, Brian? So if you going in for a quick loan or for a 1 month loan, and you enter your PIN mobile money, which accesses you to your account on which the money has been deposited, says under the terms and condition that everybody in your phone book becomes the guarantor.
Now that's where the problem comes in, because
now that is where now you need to go and use the National Personal Data Protection Office to come in. You get me, Brian?
I think that's fair enough, because what usually happens is this. When you log into those digital lending platforms, that is when you're taking a loan, there's nowhere that you are told that you're putting a guarantor, so that by any chance you fail to pay your loan, they are going to call somebody. So I think it's a matter of how transparent are these lending platforms, because whenever you're reading
Thank
their terms and conditions, you won't see any such thing, because I'm 100% sure there is nobody who in his sane mind can consent to an agreement that says, if you fail to repay your loan on time, we are going to call all your contact list, because many people value their privacy. And you see, the moment you start exposing someone, you that's like you are disrespecting it has something to do with the dignity, and that's
you.
that's
Lose
that's not,
dignity, true.
yeah, that's not good. And why people were complaining is that they don't tell you anywhere that they are going to call your contacts. And even to make it worse, they don't just call your contact. There is hidden fees on these loans, whereby usually that you're supposed, maybe let's say you're supposed to pay your loan by the 5th of every month. Then if you don't pay by the 5th of that month, there is a penalty that they charge you. But now, when you're going to repay that loan, you'll realize that the loan that you're repaying is much more higher than what you signed up for. So you wonder, where are these charges coming from? Because these people, I'm, I'm even grateful to the CBK, because most of them their licenses were revoked because they were clearly exploiting us. They are not even transparent in their dealings. And even some of them, you might find somebody has taken a loan of, let's say, 100,000. He or she has paid up to 50,000. And maybe they are now faced with some financial challenges. And now they want to renegotiate the terms of the loan so that they can be given more time. Do you know that these people will come with auctioneers, and they will recover your property that is
A
worth the
hundred.
loan you took, ignoring the percentage that you had already paid?
Yeah,
So
say that again. So
it's really a mess.
this is where now this, and I know time has run out for us, and this is why I'm saying that's why we are going to have another series of the consumer-centered vision for in the digital finance environment to come up with fair digital finance. This is where, Brian, today you need to marshal and call upon people where the consumer organizations in Kenya might not be in position to speak out. Then you call on citizens as consumers to ask the Central Bank of Kenya to come up with more transparent requirements, respect of personal private data, call for consumers to be responsible when they borrow, and to call upon responsible lending. I'll tell you, many consumers, like in Uganda, are indebted because of weak lending terms. It is only when the terms of references are evoked, when they find that I didn't know that this was the way to go. Now it is important. They have them on their apps, but then the terms of reference at times are thousands of words, and as you are reading them, it is taking away your data. So we will ask the Central Bank of Kenya to ask, can there be a short agreement sent to your WhatsApp? When you finish reading it, you consent to it, then they give you the loan.
That should be the way.
So, Brian, I would like to thank you very much for the opportunity today. We have touched the genesis of digital finance. We have touched the importance of having a consumer-centered vision for fair digital finance. We went into inclusion. I would like next Saturday, we talk about safety, then we talk about data protection that we have ended up with today, which you raised, Brian. It's as if you are reading my mind, what I was going to talk about next. So now that you introduce next Saturday's discussion on safety and data protection, we are going to next Saturday focus on one thing: the consumer-centered vision in digital finance, safety, and then data protection. What government needs to do, what the service providers who call you and call your wife, call your girlfriend, call your son, call your daughter, call your pastor, call your mother, where they need to stop if you have borrowed from them to protect your digital and privacy. So, Brian, thank you very much for hosting me this week. And I would like to thank Dennis, our producer, and Brian, all your colleagues in Zimbabwe, South Africa, Ghana, Nigeria, Sierra Leone, and the Humanist Africa TV globally. And the viewers, please continue subscribing and send out to others. Thank you very much. And Paul, thank you for being busy today. You've enabled me interact with Brian, who was my producer the last time we were together. We will need to pop a champagne one day when we are all together at the different Humanist Africa TV producers and hosts in the different continents and different countries. God bless. I wish you a superb weekend.
Thank you very much, Mr. Kimera. It's been an honor to have you in the studio today. The topic of today was quite really interesting, and it's a topic that really beats at the heart of everyone in the world, I guess, because not everything revolves around the consumer. So if the consumer cannot be protected, then it means even those business won't be sustainable, because if we don't have consumers, there is no business that we are doing. So we look forward to having you back here next week so that we can continue from where we've left. Today we've focused much more on digital finance inclusion for the consumers, and hopefully next week we'll pick up from there as we move on. And to our viewers, I want to thank everyone who has been tuned in for this show. This was just part one of this discussion. We are going to continue with this discussion until we exhaust everything. I would like to encourage our viewers, subscribe to our YouTube channel at Humanist TV Africa, follow our Facebook page, Humanist TV Africa. You can also follow our WhatsApp page for daily news updates. And if you have an issue, you want us to host you, there is something you will wish to share with us that you will wish to be broadcasted, you can also write to us, info@humanisttvafrica.com, and one of our staff will be able to respond to you in time. Thank you for your time. Looking to see you next time. Bye-bye.